Hello and welcome back to the studio. Today we are learning how to paint 6 different folk art flowers in line art style. We are using our number 4 round brush. The bristles on mine are a little bit injured, but they work for this painting. And then I'm using my regular indigo blue paint that I've made from the indigo plant. Using just a little piece of paper. It is 6 by 8 inches. So that kind of gives you the scale that we're working with in this particular painting. Of course, it doesn't really matter. If you like to paint larger, if you like to paint smaller, this is more of, a fun exercise that helps us to really break down the different types of folk artish flowers that we're using in different compositions. And it's always nice. I like making these little, lists of flowers because it's easier for me to refer back to if I'm in a painting and maybe I'm stuck, I need something angular or something rounded. Having this list of flowers easy to refer to and review is so handy. So I'm moving my paints up a little bit closer and getting a little bit of water in my brush, and we're going to get started with the first painting. So when you're doing line art with your watercolor brush, it's important to have a good balance of a brush that's carrying enough water so that we can really, make the full line without it getting sort of broken up, but not too much so that we have enough pigment on here. And this first flower is more of a tulipy flower. We're pretty much just working with leaf shapes. That center petal is sort of your typical leaf shape, and then 2 half leaf shapes tucked behind it, 2 alternating leaves along the bottom, and just a little bit of leaf vein suggestions there. And of course, me being right-handed, my hand is always in the way of the camera. But here I'm just adding a little bit of water, clear water, to pull the paint in. As we play around with these flowers, it's always nice to kind of keep in mind not just the line art itself, which is handy, but also how are we going to add shading, how are we going to add colors, how are we going to make them pop in our paintings later on. So this next one, we are doing a regular, like crow's foot, a V and a line in between, and then a sort of ice cream shape on the top, 2 angled lines down that are then connected into sort of like an upside down triangle with an ice cream cone on top. And then along on either side, what we're going to do is just kind of pull off the 2 sort of leaf veins and then do a little bit of an outline of a leaf on the bottom. And here you can see I'm losing just a little bit of pigment on my brush, so it's going to turn out a lot lighter. As you paint with watercolor, of course, it does dry lighter than you've painted on the page, so it's sort of hit or miss in terms of getting the outline right, and then just adding to it as you go along. If you need to drop in a little bit more pigment, you always can, or you just let it dry and see if you want to run over it a second time. Adding just a couple of dots to the top. Give it that little folksy feel. This is kind of a fun one just as a space filler. It doesn't usually work with stems as much, but can be a nice central flower in your painting bouquet or however you'd like it. This next one, we're going to do 5 lines, sort of equal length and size, and then make tall hearts on either side. So the center line is like the center of the heart, and then we just keep going afterwards and continue it for each of those lines. As you do line art with a brush or calligraphy or anything, it's always important to make sure that you're pulling the brush down and towards you, and sometimes that requires turning your page as you paint, or maybe breaking up your strokes in a way that you wouldn't normally think of doing if you're using like a marker or a pen. So now I'm just sort of starting at the center of the flower with a little bit of pigment and pulling that line out so we have that really dark center. It looks a little bit more connected. It looks, I don't know, we have that nice contrast of that really, really darkness in the center and then the more highlighted tips of those leaves. So this is a fun star flower, a little bit of a curved stem, kind of like a violet. And then a couple leaves on the bottom and one midway up the stem. And here I'm just doing, I don't know, mid-length, mid-height, I don't know, skinnier leaves anyway, with just one central vein in the middle. And it's funny, yeah, as I was trying to think of things to do for today's painting, I've just been in such a dry spell in terms of creativity. I just wanted to go back to the basics and do something that looks great that I can refer back to. And it's always good to have sort of these core pieces that you can still get the peace and the tranquility of painting without putting too much pressure on yourself in terms of, you know, coming up with a new layout or doing something more complex. This is a fairly popular motif that you'll see in a lot of, you know, variated in a lot of different folk style paintings. And so you can see what I've just done is a straight line down and then sort of pulled out some veins and widening U's or V's throughout, little rounded top. And then I love adding these little dots to the top, just right in those little divots of where those leaves are joined together. This next one is similar-ish to the middle top. So we'll start with that larger V and then a center line. And at the end of each of those lines, we're putting just a little bit, like a little circle. And then along the outside, so that's the center of the petal or the leaf, whatever this is. And we do angles then at the top. And again, this one's a nice one. It is a nice filler. It's also nice if you have maybe a lot of curves, a lot of circles in your painting, but you just need a little bit of some angle, something sharper that still has that roundish motif at its core. Or, you know, and if this isn't, maybe this is just a little batch of 3 leaves. Depends on how you color it in and how you play around with it as you start composing maybe a more intricate painting. All right, so here I'm just pulling a little bit of my pigment, similar to how we did with that star flower, starting at the center and pulling it outwards. We're really anchoring these leaves, making sure that the thickest lines are in the center where they all join, and then they sort of fade outwards to the tips. So our last flower for today is, I don't even know what to call it, but we're just starting with 2 leaf shapes and drawing like a setting sun in between, a couple of lines coming out. Maybe this is a bud, a little flower budding out, a little bit of a curved stem, some opposite leaves, and that's it. I hope that you've enjoyed this moment in the studio as much as I have. Hope you've had fun making these florals, and I look forward to sharing a few different motifs. Again, the next video, what we're going to work on is taking one of these flowers and making a mini painting out of it to show how we can start playing around with different colors, using different colors, and layering our paints a little bit differently. So with that in mind, I hope you have a great day, and definitely hit subscribe if you want. Head over to my website. I will leave the outlines, share like a PDF, a free PDF of the outlines of these flowers on my site. Head over there, grab it if you'd like. Sometimes it's nice to be able to just trace over something instead of trying to paint it from scratch. So have a wonderful day, evening, morning, wherever you're at in the world, and I will see you next time.